Welcome everyone back to another episode of When Movies Were Good with Rachel and my special guest star, my only guest star, the wonderful Matt. Matt, how are you today?
Well, I'm good. I'm glad to know I hold such a special status.
As I said, you're the Jonathan Harris of When Movies Were Good, the weekly guest star who's on every week, you know. So we are doing our Christmas episode for everybody, and we chose two of the greats. It's a Wonderful Life, 1946, Frank Capra directed, and White Christmas, 1954, directed by one of your favourites, because he directed one of your favourite films, Michael Curtis, who directed Casablanca as well.
Yeah, it's been a good week, and it kind of crept up on us, like all Christmas things creep up on us, and I was like, my God, it's going to be mid-December. We need to do a Christmas special.
Yeah, we were just chatting about that after the last episode that we did. And like a lot of movies that we've discussed this year, these are films that I have been meaning to watch for decades, and I, for whatever reason, never got around to it. I've always seen the ending of It's a Wonderful Life when he's with the family. I know some of the songs out of White Christmas because I was singing along to them when I was watching it, but never sat down and watched them from start to finish. So it was kind of good to finally get these films under my belt.
Yeah, well, I had a similar experience with White Christmas because that DVD that I watched it from for this show, I had actually had for over a year, and like I bought it one time from the store when it was out for Christmas, and as often happens at that time of the year, you just don't get as much time to sit down and do things like movies and fishing like you do through the rest of the year. And then Christmas passed and I'm like, okay, probably not a time to be watching a Christmas film, and I just didn't get around it till this year.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I've literally, for probably 30 years, been meaning to watch It's a Wonderful Life since I was a kid, and just for whatever reason, you always see it in other famous films. They're watching It's a Wonderful Life, and it's always the part at the end when they're all standing near the Christmas tree and he's holding his daughter and everything. So I'm like, it might be time to actually watch the film from the start.
Yeah, for a long time, the only It's a Wonderful Life I'd seen was the French dub version that you see in Home Alone.
Oh, right. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm having a vague memory of that. So we'll jump right in and we'll start with It's a Wonderful Life. So this is, as we were discussing before, it's a little bit like Die Hard in terms of it's technically set around Christmas, but not a Christmas movie, but now it's become one of the most well-loved Christmas movies of all time, if not the most well-loved Christmas movie of all time.
Yeah, well, part of it was... and like a lot of movies, like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, it achieved a new immortality in the age of television, because It's a Wonderful Life, they didn't renew the copyright in the 60s or the 70s when it came up, and so it was one of those films they kept getting shown over and over on television, and it became a holiday classic, and even Frank Capra himself was amazed at this new life it was taking towards the end of his life.
Yeah, and I did read that it in fact did become his favourite film that he directed. I'm sure he had a lot of favourite films he directed, but it was one of his personal favourites. So just to do a brief recap, the film came out in 1946, and it was based off a booklet, so maybe a novella called The Greatest Gift by Philip Van Doren Stern, which was published a few years earlier. So, of course, the film stars James Stewart as George Bailey, essentially a man who's given up his personal dreams to help other members of his family, other members in the town of Bedford Falls where he lives, and then a series of unfortunate events creeps up on him, and he's really thinking about ending it all, jumping off a bridge. And we see at the start of the film a group of guardian angels sort of jump in and try to intervene. And one of them at the end, Clarence, played by Henry Travers, he essentially comes in and intervenes for George and shows him how good his life actually is by showing him what his life would be like without, what the town would be like and his family's life would be like without him in it. And that gives him a change of heart, and then it's a nice ending.
Yeah, it's a very charming story. And it's something that can be relatable to a lot of people. I find it particularly resonates with me at the moment because I'm at this stage where I'm having to make a lot of adult decisions, and I've not necessarily been able to do all the things I planned to do when I was younger, and I try to keep the vital things in life in perspective.
Yeah, I actually thought of you when I was watching this film. There was a few things that he was going through, especially when he was younger and he wanted to go away and he couldn't. And just a few things that you had mentioned, just certain places that you maybe would have liked to have studied in or had a work experience option in or something like that. It did actually, I thought this would resonate with you a bit because...
And the same for you. You've done a lot, but there was so much more you wanted to do. I know. But I think a kind of a sad underlining to when we think of this story all these years later now is that that is kind of a reflection of a time when people were often literally raised in a village environment, even if you lived in a town, and the sort of all the people that you knew before and after, whereas other people in their suburban houses quite often seem to have a more isolated upbringing. There's a less of a community sense.
Yes.
So it's you won't necessarily feel attached to the people of your early life the same way.
Yeah, exactly. So when I considered this film, I had a misunderstanding about what the film was about. So I always thought the whole thing was the angel showing him his life, what it was like without him in it. I didn't realise that was only the last 15 minutes of the film. You know what I mean? Like that main part where he's walking around and nobody knows him. I thought the whole film was that. I thought we saw a snapshot of his life, like a day in his life at the start. I want to end it all. And so I was sitting there, I'm like, oh, that's actually not what the whole film is about. That's only at the end of the film. I thought the whole film was him going through the town and seeing his life without him in it and just experiencing all these things over the course of the day. So I was sort of I wouldn't use the term disappointed. I was like, oh, this film actually wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Well, I suppose it sort of has to build up to that climatic moment because people need to relate to why... because it's not like a lot of modern discussions of mental health, like we're seeing the practical reasons why he's got to the point he is, in that he feels so desperate that he wants to remove himself. And it does kind of build up to what we'll be seeing with the angel when you have the sort of the two spirit dudes discussing Jimmy up in the stars. And actually, for the time, I think that was quite nice, the special effects they did with the night sky moving.
I was thinking what you would think of that. I mean, for the time that it was made, 1946, it actually was very creative.
Yeah, it's I'd actually like to know a bit. A lot of films like King Kong and those, I'd like to know a bit more about the special effects of the time.
Yeah, it's definitely something interesting. So I was also reading that Henry Fonda was considered for this role, who was one of Jimmy Stewart's best friends. But having said that, I think this is one of the best things I've seen James Stewart do. That scene towards the end of the film where he's at the bar and he's drinking and he starts crying and, he was actually he really sold it, like all through the different parts of George's life from when he was a younger man. And that dance scene that they did over the swimming pool was utterly fantastic. He was great. He's a bit lanky and everything, but he was giving it all that he had.
Yeah, I've never seen a swimming pool like that where it's like literally hidden by a basketball court or something.
Yeah, so I was reading a little bit about that, where they shot that. So the majority of the film was shot out at Culver City on the let's see here. So it was shot out at Culver City, California, on the RKO movie ranch that they had, and the movie ranch they had in Encino, which doesn't exist anymore. So they had adapted sets from another film, but the actual where the swimming pool was, it's located in the gymnasium at Beverly Hills High School and is still in use, or at least part of it's still there. So it did. I was thinking, gee, that's very technologically sound at the time. I didn't think they'd have anything like that.
Yeah, and I think the studio must have been very proud of that at its time, because one of the old film previews I've seen for it, which is probably part of a reason why I think the film was underappreciated for a long time, in that it sold the film the wrong way. But you have it has this big feature on the class suddenly being pulled with the floor out from under them and falling into the water, which was fun at that moment, but it doesn't give justice to the whole strength of the storyline.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to see something like that in this film, but it was actually quite stunning how they shot. And he was, I mean, my God, he and Donna Reed were dancing up a storm there. I mean, it's fantastic. It's amazing, actually. And I was thinking, especially when we come into White Christmas, just how multifaceted all the performers were back then. Like, every actor and actress could sing to a certain degree, they could dance to a certain degree.
Jimmy Stewart could play the accordion.
Yeah, and they could play piano, they could. Now, I mean, no offense or anything, I'm sure there is still a lot of multi-talented people who do go between Broadway and West End and doing films and stuff and TV, but you really don't have that repertoire of actors and actresses that can really do it all.
Well, talk about the man who does it all. You know, Jimmy Stewart actually had quite a successable career in the army as well.
That's right.
And I don't mean just doing the service during World War II. Like, he I don't know quite how he balanced it, but he became a general by the end.
Yeah, he was quite high up in the army, I think, and also people like Henry Fonda and all that were, you know, had all gone into the army, and it was just part of their. I mean, I can't really imagine. I'm sure there probably are a few modern actors like Adam Driver. I think he was in the newer Star Wars films. I think he was in the army, or the Marines, but just back then it was just they had to do the other things that the other men were doing at the time, and I guess society and life has shifted. So.
But he must have been quite a good military person, because I think he got to get to general, and as far as he did, he got too far to be just a poster boy from the army, to use a famous person.
Yeah. Because
there were plenty of others that, like Clark Gable. I'm sure he was a very effective pilot, and it may have been that he was old at the time, but I don't think he did much beyond what was happening in World War II. Of course, that is plenty for most people.
Yeah, he was a brigadier general, which is, that's pretty high up there. I mean, to get to any status of that's a one. So I guess 4-star is the top general. He was a 1-star, but still.
I've got to read up on that.
Yeah, I've just got it up here. So
it gets very complicated.
It does get complicated. I think the 4-star generals are the highest ones.
And it's America's a different thing here. Like in Australia, I think we may not even have generals.
Yeah, I don't think. I think we'll do. Hey, folks, we will research this, and the next military movies we do, we will confirm that for you. But he definitely was a brigadier general, which I think is the first grade of general.
I'm not sure if he'll want to do that. We'll just be noticing all the way they got the details wrong in other movies.
Yeah, that's true. But it is actually quite interesting. But yeah, no, you're right there. But even to get to that rank in the armed forces is still an amazing standing. So yes, I liked the film. I didn't love it. I think just because I thought it was something different, and through the whole film I was like, oh, this is not what I thought the film was. Perhaps I did love the ending of the film though.
Yeah, I loved the film very much. I thought it was a good moral tale. I'm glad they toned down the because I think Frank Capra, who came from a bit of a more religious background at the time, had some ideas of including a bit more literal prayer scenes, but I think the way they did it was a way that a lot more people could relate with. The ending, yes, it was nice. I'm not really convinced that suddenly the whole town would come out with donations.
Yeah.
Like maybe if there were like a select band of the community, or maybe Mr. Potter's assistant came by with the truth or something inspired by it. But it's one of those moments where you can sort of because you've built that tension of the story, you can sort of forgive it in that period. And as often I turn to the master of Hitchcock's words, that logic is something that only works after the film, and by that time everybody's paid for their tickets.
Yeah. And how true he was, and how true his words are. So yes, it was good to finally see this film. It was good to put the scenes there. Donna Reed, we've discussed Donna Reed before, and she does have a relationship with somebody that I like to mention in this podcast even though he didn't even star in any classic movies, but that's fine. Yeah, of course, she played Larry Hagman's mother for one season in Dallas when Barbara Bel Geddes wasn't available, and it was a very interesting season at that. So yes, that's my Larry Hagman connection for this film, of course. So we'll jump on to White Christmas, 1954, directed by the great Michael Curtis. So this film seems like it's an amalgamation of other films that perhaps came before it, like Holiday Inn and a few things like that, because it features the songs of Irving Berlin. So White Christmas was not written especially for this film. It was in some previous works that Bing Crosby had been involved with. They decided, yep, let's take White Christmas and put a story around it, I guess. And you kind of get that sense watching the film that it's more about just having these big show piece, you know, musical song and dance parts, which is more than fine with me. So White Christmas stars the great Bing Crosby, the great Danny Kaye, who I actually forgot how much I loved. I used to watch him a lot in like The Court Jester, Hans Christian Andersen. I used to watch those films when I was like 10 or so. Absolutely loved it. George's lovely aunt, Rosemary Clooney. And it was nice to see Rosemary Clooney, as I was saying to Matt before we started the podcast. I remember, just because before Rosemary Clooney passed away, I used to read articles and stuff about her. And I remember her as this bigger woman, because she was a bit of a larger woman in her later life with these glasses on. And seeing her in this film as a younger woman, a bit more svelte, and, you know, I was like, oh my gosh, is that the same person? And I was watching the videos of her last night. It is. And the lovely Vera Ellen, but Rosemary and Vera, you know, we were reading, had some tough stuff happened to them in their lives. But they were fantastic in this film, and distributed by Paramount Pictures. It is a really fun film to watch with great music.
Yeah, it was quite an inspired selection of music. What I had to do to stop myself giggling a bit at the beginning, though, was that early in the film we have our leading lady singing Sisters, and I had a sudden shock because I realized that the first time I'd heard that song before, and it was with two 60-year-old men performing in drag.
Right, yeah, was this at our local theatre company?
Yes, it was. Yeah, so the picture took a while to move away.
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't realise that Danny and Bing actually sort of did their own rendition, miming them to it as well, which was a lot of fun. And there was some interpretive dance numbers in this that Danny Kaye did with a group. I wasn't expecting to see something like that, you know, when they were all in the plane, you know, and dancing. And
yeah, it's like the Men in Black.
Yeah, the Men in... I was like, wow, this is really out there for this film. So it seemed like, you know, there's... I'm trying to... my memory's gone in terms of... But sometimes there's a great song. It's probably like a lot of the Beatles movies or the Spice World movie. They just kind of build a story around whatever songs they've got. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Again, I thought the story of White Christmas, I thought it was just about this group of people living in a town and something happened. And I never actually read what the story was. And I didn't realise that it was... that the main characters all were actually professional performers who were quite successful, and then they'd come into the town to sort of help out at the end. So I thought they were all just people that lived in a town and they just happened to sing like awesome as well.
Yeah, well, anything to raise money in a crisis.
Yeah, but I have to say, I really liked Danny Kaye in this film. I really liked him, and I thought Vera Ellen was really sweet. Who do you think, out of the four, grabbed your attention?
Well, I am a big Crosby fan,
yeah.
And I'll be honest, this isn't my favourite one of his. I find it seems to be the plot seems to be a bit weak and just supports the songs, which is often a danger in musicals.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed a lot of the one-liners between Crosby and Danny Kaye.
Yeah.
They really are what makes a lot of films of that generation for me. They're kind of wet. Yeah. Especially in the dressing room when they're tricking each other into their respective dates. Yeah,
and I forgot how good Danny Kaye was as an all-around performer. Not only has he got a really good voice, I mean, Bing probably has the more well-known voice, and same with Rosemary as well, because she's an outstanding singer in her own right. But I forgot how good he was at, the physical comedy, the slapstick. He's a good dancer. He may not be Fred Astaire or Gene Kelly, but he was really, or Donald O'Connor, but he was really good in his own right. And he had played, I remember some roles he did later on, and he can do dramatic roles. He can do comedy roles. Like, geez, oh, what a performer.
Yeah, it's a bit like Donald O'Connor in Singing in the Rain. The pure energy.
Yeah, it's just like, and a lot of these people, like Fred Astaire, they came up through that vaudeville. They had other jobs before they got into it, and they really came up the hard way. And you can see that because when they got to where they needed to be, it's not like it was effortless, but they had just put in that time that they needed. And I thought they made a really lovely foursome in this film. I really liked Danny and Vera. I liked their energy together and how playful they were. And I thought Rosemary was a good match for Bing. And I finally did the reading and found out where Bing's name came from. It was from a comic book or a storybook, like when he was a child growing up in Washington. And the name of the cat, he just loved this comic strip. And his name Bing comes from that comic strip. So it's Harry Crosby is his name, but yeah.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I actually saw an old film reel of Bing Crosby in the mid-40s, and it was actually for the American Tax Department.
Oh, right.
And they'd got a famous person to say, "Hello, everyone, it's time to do your taxes." And briefly explaining how to fill out the form, because I guess you didn't have a government website to refer to back then or anything. And it was like, "Now, you'll have to write in all your details properly. I, for example, couldn't write the name Bing. You had to be a bit more formal." So he was obviously open that Bing was more of a stage nickname.
Yeah, it was, I think it was just something I was like, I must find out why he's called Bing, or is it actually his name, or is it short for something else? And it was interesting to sort of read that little story about how it was from that comic strip or the booklet thing that he read in his hometown as a child that he loved, and then he got the nickname from that. So it's sweet when you...
So that would be like if you had a Broadway star now who called themselves Thor.
Yeah. Although I can imagine some people doing that. So, I mean, these films they're beautiful films. White Christmas is a beautiful film. And I probably enjoyed White Christmas a bit more just because I love the singing so much, and because it really reacquainted me with Danny Kaye and actually how much I'm a fan of his, and I'm really looking forward to getting back into... I'll put him up there with Ray and sort of have a few nights where I do a Ray and Danny double, I think, at the house,
Yes, I know the cogs in your head are turning right now to plan that as we speak.
Oh, I'll definitely say, but I just love these, and I'm a big Donald O'Connor fan as well, so definitely want to get in and watch a lot more of his films, and I'm excited as we go forward. There's literally just so much that we can cover. As Matt and I often say, it's a lifelong hobby that we've got here. So is there anything else about White Christmas you want to say before we finish up on that one today?
I would say, and this is often the problem with operas as well, that a lot of people go to see them after a while because there's one particular song that's drawn them to it for ages. Trying to not go in with that mentality. Like with any movie, see it as a new thing. Like there was that famous American critic who... like all people I refer to, I forget their name, but he said that any movie, no matter how old, it's not an old movie if you haven't seen it before.
Yeah.
So see with fresh eyes.
Yep.
And I admit that of the pair, White Christmas probably wasn't as much my favourite, probably because I have a bit more taste for the drama these days.
Yeah.
When I was young, I think that would be my favourite of the two. But I seem to like something a bit more dark edge, like It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Although you wouldn't hear it from the name and its stereotypical vision that It's a Wonderful Life is the darker of the two.
Yeah, although I guess both films had good moral moral stories in them. And, I guess in White Christmas it was about the characters eventually following their hearts, and if that meant that their performing had to take a bit of a back seat and they could help somebody out, which they did, and that was sort of the moral of It's a Wonderful Life too, in a way.
Well, we need more films and pieces of art like that can motivate someone to do a nice thing for their next door neighbor.
Yeah,
or their distant neighbour in this case.
Definitely. And, I wouldn't be right for me to not just point out the fact that Bing Crosby's, one of his younger children, Mary Crosby, played Kristen in Dallas, who was the one who shot JR. I just thought, I'd have to bring that up.
Yeah, if you hadn't come up with a Larry Hagman reference for the second half as well, I'd have been very disappointed.
He said, well, the good thing about Larry is his mother, Mary Martin, knew a lot of these people, so I think I can pretty much connect him to anyone, even though he never actually directly met them himself.
One of these days I'm going to edit a whole episode of all your Larry Hagman references.
There'll be quite a few there, but I got the ball rolling early, and I thought this is just one of the niche things that has to be done in this website. Well, thanks very much, guys. Thank you so much for being here. We started this actually in lockdown. I think we had a few sessions together, and then we did it remotely, as you can tell from the great audio quality that we had at that time.
Yep, we're still working on getting a sponsorship on the road.
And that was kind of, I have a bit of patchy internet on my end, so I think that was more my fault. But so we managed to survive through it, and here we are back again working in person together. Our next broadcast will be on Sunday the 10th of January, just to give everyone a break, ourselves a break, and you know what it's like. I work over Christmas, Matt's doing different things over Christmas as well, so it's probably easy to just meet up with a fresh head in the new year. And we do have a fun new year planned. 2 films I'm looking forward to: 1951, Vincent Minnelli's An American in Paris with the great Gene Kelly, and Singing in the Rain, 1952, which was also directed by Gene Kelly with his directing partner as well. So, and Donald O'Connor is in the second film. I'm really looking forward to both of those.
Me too. I think we're going to be whistling to the microphone together.
Yes, definitely. So we're going to have a fun new year. We will get our social media up and running more. I've still got computer issues that I'm dealing with, but I will get them resolved before we record again. So we wish you a fantastic Christmas, New Year, healthy, happy 2021. Hopefully out and about with your family and friends and not in the house. Matt, anything you want to say to finish us off?
Well, I'd also like to say Happy Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Happy every other occasion.
Denomination.
To every denomination, and even if you don't celebrate anything at this particular time, just enjoy the time off or double time work, depending on your particular contract. I hope you enjoy it. As Rachel says, we have all our social media channels where we put out different things as well as our own episodes. And we look forward to starting the new year with you with new content. I can't believe how fast the time has gone. I know, definitely. But it's been a lot of fun. We've seen a lot of great movies, many more to come, with many more brilliant directors, brilliant stars, writers, beautiful films that we can't wait to explore more and talk more about. But in the meantime, I'm Rachel. I'm Matthew.
And we're watching good movies. Thank you, and have a great 2021.